That prescription is a logical impossibility based in secular humanism because it includes doing harm. Wait for the applause. Come on. Thank you.
Let's hear some real applause.
You don't understand its answers, Andrew, maybe because you're not a very intelligent person, but I'm not sure.
One day, Craig, I'll get to your level. When it comes to child transition surgery, we have a split on whether or not that's harmful. Who should I side with?
That is something that I wouldn't want to get into because...
those would be called what?
I can see I'm wrong.
Well, I just want to point out that that doesn't actually say that. You just made it up, Craig.
Welcome back to Rattlesnake TV, guys. In this video, we are going to be covering Andrew Wilson's recent debate at DebateCon, an event that Vinny and I were present at, as you will see. And also, we made a whole vlog on the Rattlesnake Travel channel for you guys to check out, and I'm going to leave that at the end of the video for you. So the topic of the debate was Christianity versus secular humanism. Which one is better for society? Obviously, Andrew's going to take the side of Christianity, and he's debating against a guy named Craig, who is pretty well known for debating flat earthers. It was a very entertaining one to watch in person. Andrew did what he does best and crafted a very, very clever argument. So without further ado, let's get into Andrew's opening statement.
The Humanist Manifesto, which is actually called Humanism and Its Aspirations. Humanist Manifesto 3. Blah, blah, blah. It's got a stupid title. It's terribly written. And it's complete nonsense. And no human being should ever adhere to it for the purpose of human flourishing or anything else, yet some do, like Craig here. Its greatest issue is simply that it only makes vague, descriptive claims and not one prescription for what it should actually do. So I propose a new revised manifesto, and I'm calling it Humanist 4, Society and Its Consequences. Note, while drinking in my cramped hotel room last night at an airport Holiday Inn, James, I wrote this manifesto, which is the culmination of 100 Wilson generations of drunken reason, Irish sensibilities, and just a drab of single malt whiskey. So let's launch into my new and improved Humanist Manifesto. Craig will be unable to refute any of my prescriptions based on his manifesto if he only uses his manifesto. Instead, he will require a normative framework to supplement that manifesto. He has to do this because without using the manifesto, what are we even arguing about? I can refute his prescriptions based on Christian ethics, church tradition, and effects to society, which is what this debate's about. What is best for society? But he's unable to apply that standard with the Humanist Manifesto itself. He must appeal to the sources outside this manifesto. So humanism has no real, measurable, actual, conceivable effect on society, yet Christianity does. He offers descriptions, I offer prescriptions. So here it is. I'm going to read to you the tenets of humanism according to the Humanist Manifesto itself, their own words, and then apply a reasonable and logical prescription to each tenet. Now, Craig has to debunk each of my prescriptions using the Humanist Manifesto or he loses. Why does he lose? Well, because I can debunk the stated prescriptions easily using Christian ethics, and he can't debunk or even successfully argue against one using the Humanist Manifesto. He requires something else. Do you see the problem here? First tenet, Humanist Manifesto. Knowledge of the world is derived by observation, experiment, and rational analysis. Humanists find that science is the best method for determining this knowledge as well as solving problems and developing beneficial technologies. My prescription based on that. The birth rate is low, therefore all women must be forcibly bred. Experiments must be conducted on them to maximize fertility and thereby maximize human flourishing because science, and that is good. My society has produced obvious good results on society for millennia, including the fact that all societies which currently are considered the best are using my moral framework and not his. None, as in not one, as in 0 societies on Earth are run off the Humanist Manifesto. If Craig claims the manifesto itself isn't necessary to humanism or its doctrines, then again, what the hell is humanism? And how do we know what it is? How do we know what we're supposed to do with it? If we don't even have a document which describes it, then how can we understand how it works? If Craig claims we can use things outside the manifesto, he also again loses unless he can describe how that is humanism and how my prescriptions are not humanism, which is clearly defined with this manifesto I've been talking about. Also, I just want to finish with this. Craig doesn't know what a straw man is. I think first thing out of his mouth is going to be, Andrew's straw manning me, okay? Which he also doesn't understand what ad hom means. He doesn't understand what a lot of these terms mean. I'm giving a position based on prescriptions, so I can't actually be strawmanning Craig, because these are my views. They're not your views. He'll say I'm strawmanning humanism, but I'm literally reading line by line, then giving prescriptions based on reason in regards to its tenets, so I don't really know what the problem is. Craig will not be able to refute a single prescriptive claim I've made by using his manifesto. All of my prescriptive claims are humanist claims, and this is why humanism is the flat earth of ethical systems, and that's what Craig is. You're a moral flat earther.
So Andrew's argument here is designed to highlight the arbitrariness of the secular humanist manifesto and the fact that it can obviously change very easily depending on interpretation. If harm reduction and human thriving is allegedly the goal of the secular humanists, then pretty much every single subgroup of the population will interpret this very differently and will have vastly different prescriptions for what that means. Also, moral flat earther is a great move because Craig, like we said before, very regularly debates these flat earthers, and he's very outspoken in how he thinks that this position is particularly stupid. This being because he thinks that their position is not grounded in any proper reason. However, the secular humanist position and the secular humanist manifesto, when it comes to morality, is a doctrine that is quite arbitrary and actually not based on anything objective, but just rather preferences. So anyways, let's have a quick look at Craig's opening statement, and then we will just get straight into the open dialogue. Before then, guys, don't forget to smash that like button as hard as you can and subscribe if you're not already.
Right. What is secular humanism? Secular humanism is a philosophical stance that values the capacity of individuals to act with autonomy and emphasizes critical thinking and evidence-based reasoning. It prioritizes human welfare over objective knowledge and objective knowledge over religious dogma or superstition. Secular humanism centers on upholding reason, ethics, and justice as foundations for a humane society. It advocates for human rights, social equality, and the continuous search for truth through scientific and rational inquiry. Secular humanism is all about cutting down the hurt and boosting the happy. It's a no-brainer. Less suffering, more thriving. This principle shows up in the nitty-gritty stuff like public health policies and safety rules that actually work for us, not against us. Forget the days of wiping out chunks of Europe in the Crusades. Now we're into making life better, not starting wars over divine favor. It's not about making choices that help, it's about making choices that help everyone, proving that we can do a lot of good without any kind of holy wars. Secular humanism sticks to reason and real-world proof to keep its ethics sharp. We're not about bending the rules to fit old-timey text or mystical claims from a sky daddy as the world changes. Thanks to tech upgrades and new social twists, we update our moral code too. It's about evolving with the times, not getting stuck in scriptural mud.
Do you have a copy of Humanism 3?
No.
You know? You do follow Humanism 3?
It's a framework, yes.
Okay, it is your framework.
Yeah.
Can you, using the document of Humanism 3, debunk a single prescriptive statement that I make?
Well, your prescriptive statements were just something you made up based on your personal interpretations of it. And,
so secular humanism 3.
Yeah, I was in the middle of talking, Andrew.
So humanism 3.
If you want to calm down when I'm talking, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, what you did was you said, I think this is what the manifesto says, so therefore I'm going to interpret it this way and bring my own prescriptions. Well, Andrew, your prescriptions are your prescriptions, and that is literally a straw man because it is your own interpretation of secular humanism, which doesn't align with what everyone else thinks secular humanism is. You claim I don't know what an ad hom and things are. Trust me, I debate flat earthers all the time. But yeah, I don't have to argue against your personal prescriptions. We can just talk about what secular humanism is better for society. None of the things that you mentioned are about society. They're just what you don't like about secular humanism. What I'm just going to ask you is very simple.
Humanism.
Yeah, what I'm going to ask you, Andrew, is very simple.
How long are you going to filibuster, dude?
Well, I was literally about to ask a question. If you can calm down and let me finish my sentence, then you can respond.
Craig,
right, what I am going to ask you is...
Chill out, Craig. Stop spurging, Craig.
What I'm going to ask you, Andrew...
Craig.
I'm like 3 words away from the end.
Craig. Stop spurring. Calm down.
Are you okay?
Do you need a moment? We'll get to the question. Go ahead, Craig.
Do you need a moment, Andrew? It's okay.
Calm down, Craig.
If you need a moment to take a breath, that's
Go ahead,
absolutely fine. Yeah.
Craig, this is a great time to ask the question.
What I'm going to ask you, Andrew, is because you failed to do that in your opening, could you explain to us why Christianity is better for society?
Yeah.
Instead of just attacking your own views of society.
So let's make this really simple, right? So Craig says here, he says, well, that's your interpretation of the Humanist Manifesto. Do you see the problem?
Yeah,
Everybody's
that
going
wasn't
to
the
have an
question.
interpretation of the Humanist Manifesto. Thus, if everybody has an interpretation of the Humanist Manifesto, including me, we can make prescriptions based on it, Craig. So now I'm making prescriptions based on the Humanist Manifesto for what? Society. Okay? You are asking about Christianity. I told you that Christian ethics are better for society because I can refute the prescriptions made in the Humanist Manifesto that I just made in the Humanist Manifesto. You, Craig, cannot refute a single prescription I made off a single tenet in the Humanist Manifesto using your own manifesto. Do you understand that?
Yes, Andrew, I completely understand
So
that.
doesn't that have a society entailment,
So,
a societal entailment, Craig?
Would you like me to answer the question, or are you just going to talk when I talk?
I can't wait. Go ahead.
Do you need a minute to calm down? It's fine. We can take 2 minutes, and you can. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, get to the answer,
okay.
please.
Yeah. So again, what you haven't done is explain why Christianity is better. You just said, "I think it's better because I don't like secular humanism." That's not explaining why Christianity, what ethics, what morals about Christianity make it better for society.
So Andrew has actually laid the framework of his argument very well here, which is that Craig, with his secular humanist manifesto, actually can't debunk any of the absurd prescriptions that Andrew put forward. However, within the paradigm of Christian ethics, Andrew is able to do that quite easily. This is the key, and this is what Craig isn't quite understanding here. Andrew is using the secular humanist manifesto to make these absurd prescriptions. This is to highlight the fact that the ideas of secular humanism aren't grounded in anything objective whatsoever, and they are likely to just change with the wind depending on what's popular. But more so, who is interpreting this and who is interpreting when harm is occurring. But Craig here is making the mistake of interpreting Andrew's argument as a straw man of secular humanism and of the outcomes allegedly of secular humanism.
And that is literally a straw man because it is your own interpretation of secular humanism.
And that's not what Andrew is doing. And we're going to build on this more as we go.
Let's do this, perhaps, so that we're not talking past each other. Are you willing to steel man my argument here? Can you steel man it?
Well, your argument would be based on your particular version of Christianity, which is which again?
Can you steel man my argument, Craig?
Which argument?
The one I just made, Craig.
Your argument is you don't like secular humanism. These are the things I don't like about secular humanism. So I'm going to say secular humanism can do these things, and that means that secular humanism is bad. That's what you've said, Andrew. You have given me a list of things that you think you can prescribe based on the Humanist Manifesto, right? That's what you've done, correct?
Uh-huh.
Right? So therefore, you are saying, well, these are the prescriptions that I think I can give based on secular humanism.
Why do I think Christianity is better? What's my argument? Christianity.
You haven't said yet. You've said what you've said, Andrew, is that Christianity can debunk these things, but you haven't explained how it can debunk them.
Okay, let's
give me specifics
here.
related to Christianity.
Let's do it.
Debunk the things about secular humanism you don't like.
So under Christian ethics, forcibly locking up women and doing horrible things to them would be a violation of God's law. It would be a violation of Jesus Christ's law to man. So because of that, Christians would say, no, you can't lock women up and forcibly breed and experiment on them. You're not allowed to do that, Craig. Now, Craig, I just gave you a demonstration of how Christianity would debunk this. Now, Craig, can you use the Humanist Manifesto to do it? Great.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Well, so your prescription is a straw man of secular humanism. It's all right. I can explain why, right? Because secular humanism you've gone that there's a low birth rate, therefore we have to do this. Secular humanism doesn't say there's a low birth rate. So you're saying that secular humanism makes a low birth rate.
No, I'm saying that the interpretation here prescriptively and what I'm reading is that this prescription would not in any way counter that tenet.
Well, the fact that there's low birth rates isn't a bad thing. It's not low birth rates, it's lower birth rates.
Is locking women up and breeding them a bad thing?
No, absolutely not. We wouldn't.
That's not a bad thing? Or it is a bad thing?
When I'm in the middle of a sentence explaining something, that's when you be quiet and listen. I know you're used to talking
I know. I'm way out of line, Craig. I know.
Yeah, but if you let me finish my thoughts, it would be helpful. If I can finish what I'm saying.
Okay, go ahead.
So secular humanism is about harm, and locking people up and doing experiments on them is causing harm, and they wouldn't do that. A lower birth rate doesn't necessarily mean that things are bad. It just means that there is less people than having lots of people. Now, an extremely large birth rate has many problems. So we can look at what large birth rates cause: poverty, broken families, people being homeless, lots of things like that. So there's no reason secular humanism would, if there is a low birth rate, go and then lock people up and experiment on them, because that is not necessarily a bad thing. And having a slightly lower birth rate can actually help humans flourish. As a secular humanist, we're all about human flourishing, and having a slightly lower birth rate will actually help, because it allows better standards of living, less poverty, less problems, less children being abandoned, less family and societal problems from having too many people around. So you have come up with your prescription, which is a prescription I don't agree with. So I don't have to accept your prescription.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so
if I don't have to accept your prescription, I don't even have to debunk it. That is your prescription.
Yeah.
And it's not what any secular humanism would say. In fact, that prescription is a logical impossibility based in secular humanism, because it includes doing harm. And secular humanists would not do something that includes harm. So Andrew, whether you realize it or not, and whether your audience realizes it or not, that prescription that you have come from, your interpretation, is a straw man of secular humanism.
a prescription's a straw man?
Your prescription is, because your prescription is based on interpretation that no secular humanism would come to the conclusion of. It is a logical impossibility that secular humanists would lock people up and do experiments on them.
Andrew, can you ask your question one more time?
Yeah, it's really simple, okay? Yes, I agree. You guys all have collective experiences, and you put them in a thing called the Humanist Manifesto, which you just agreed to. Using this Humanist Manifesto of your collective experiences, I gave a prescription. Can you also use that Human Manifesto to debunk that prescription? Tell me why that prescription's wrong using the manifesto itself. I think you can't. I think you can't do it, Craig, because it doesn't tell you shit. It doesn't tell you anything.
Once again,
go ahead. Show me. Show me in the manifesto itself where that prescription conflicts with humanism. Because I'm saying it's a greater form of humanism than your humanism.
Are you done?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, now take a deep breath and let me talk, okay? Good boy. There we go. Calm. Right. Once again, the Human Manifesto says no harm. It's about not doing harm. It's about human flourishing, okay? I'm not going to use the exact words because interpretations are a thing. But as secular humanists, we would get together and say, how do we deal with this thing? It's not a particular prescription of things that you have to do. It is an ethical framework. You would take the framework and you would say, how do we deal with this problem? You would get together as a society and using our shared experiences, empathy towards each other, the want to do less harm, how do we deal with this issue? Secular humanists do not do harm. That is the idea of secular humanism, to not do harm, to flourish. So I'm going to use the principles. I don't have to use the specific manifesto because I could just get into the Bible and ask how stoning people on the Sabbath because they went to work is good for society, or how not letting women speak. Andrew, your Bible says that you can beat your slave as much as you want, as long as they can get up afterwards. That comes for a good society. No, I can tell you why Christianity is not good for society, right? But you have not given me any reasons to do it. What I'm not going to do. What I'm not going to do is engage with your personal interpretations of secular humanism, because personal interpretations don't matter. Collective decisions as a society is what matter. So you, individually deciding this is the prescription of secular humanism, is not how secular humanism works.
Perfect.
And what you've done is said, we have got a set of rules, by God, that we can set out by. We've got a normative authority to go to. But that normative authority also drowned the entirety of humanity because he didn't like what they were doing. Mm-hmm. To use a normative authority that is a psychopathic deity is a very silly thing to do. We don't need a normative authority. We need collective experiences and how that will affect humans in the future.
Got it. So I just want to make sure. I'll steel man.
Wait for the applause. Come on. Thank you.
Let's hear some real applause.
All right, guys, come on.
All right.
My turn. Come on, louder.
All right. We'll return
Come on.
to the debate.
Hey.
Okay, so Craig here has said that secular humanists would never do anything that causes harm, and that is a logical impossibility, which is just an absurd statement to make. This is literally John Lennon Imagine tier logic here. If we could just eliminate religion and borders and possession, then we'd all be able to live in the scientific utopia and just eat ice cream and hold hands all day. But What if somebody comes and maybe tries to disrupt the utopia by, let's just say, assaulting one of the women there? What would you do? Would you use force to make sure that they didn't do that and potentially harm that person? What if 100 people did it? What if 1,000 people came and did that? And what if they had weapons? Would you pick up weapons and then potentially harm those people? He also said here that Andrew is strawmanning the position of the secular humanist manifesto. And this is just not the case because, like has been said, Andrew is creating his own prescriptions. And these prescriptions have been derived from the vague tenets of the secular humanist manifesto, which they themselves would have to agree are open to interpretation. Now let's get to the next bit, and over the next few segments, we're going to see Craig continually appeal to the logical impossibility that the secular humanists can ever do things that inflict harm. And watch this closely, because at the end, as you guys will see, an actual Scottish lord comes to the microphone to challenge Craig on this.
We'll return to the debate. Go ahead, Andrew.
Never an L.
I just wanted to move back to this very quickly. I just want to make sure that I steelman your position in the best faith I possibly can.
You've failed so far.
Okay, that's why I'm trying again. So let's say
You're very trying, yes.
when you say it's the collective experience of us that matters,
Yes.
and the interpretation of this framework.
It's the collective experiences
Yeah.
and how that relates to the framework.
Okay. In the collective experience of these people utilizing this framework, they would be able to utilize this framework to debunk that prescription, correct?
I just did.
You utilize collective experience to debunk my prescription.
Yeah, collective experience of people being locked up and kidnapped and experimented on being a shit thing to do. The collective experiences would say that humanity wouldn't do that, because the collective experience of humanity knows that that is a bad thing to do that causes harm and doesn't help people. There is no way that secular humanism would lock people up and experiment on them, because that causes harm. Secular humanism does not cause harm. We would not find a solution to something that includes purposely causing people harm. So you are coming up with this prescription because you do not understand what secular humanism.
What's actually to stop the collective from coming up with? Well, for one thing, they can change the manifesto itself, right? It's already been changed multiple times.
So is the Bible multiple times.
Nobody's disputing that. But what I'm saying is that inside of this, if you have a collection of people who say, for instance, to, I don't know, lock up all children, right? Prescriptively, that's what humanists decide is going to help the most when it comes to knowledge of the world being derived by observation, experimentation, and rational analysis. They're using rational analysis to determine children need to be locked up until they get to a certain age. What inside of the Humanist Manifesto itself is demonstrating that that should not happen? What is it? What can you point to anything in it?
The reduction of harm. Andrew, you keep
where?
coming
Which
up,
is where?
You keep
Where
coming
is it?
Right. Again,
Where is it?
I'm not going to use the exact words that are in it because
they're not in it.
Because
they're not in
Bible
it.
either, right? I'm not going to use the exact words. We're going to use what it represents, and what it represents is to not do harm. You keep coming up with things that are harmful, right? Let me get this through to you. Secular humanism will not do something that purposely causes harm. You keep saying...
Who determines what harm is?
Can you let me talk?
Who determines what harm is, Craig?
Collective experiences and empathy.
So if collective experience says this isn't harmful...
Collective experiences say that it is harmful, though. That is what collective experience
But what if it didn't, Craig?
But
what if the collective experience of these people says that's not harmful?
But they do, Andrew.
But if they didn't, though?
Right. Well, in the same way, what if God said that you could do whatever you want?
What if he did? Answer my question.
Well, but collective experiences don't. It's a logical impossibility under the framework.
The unanswer of the first question loses, Craig. Answer my question.
Under the framework of secular humanism, that is a logical impossibility to do, right? I do not have to answer things that will never happen.
Let's start with what does logical impossibility mean?
It means that it's something that is logically impossible as a conclusion.
You can't use the words to describe the words, Craig.
Yes, you can.
What does logical impossibility mean?
It means that it is something that would not come as a result of conclusions of what's happening. If you look at the overall, if you look at the overall conclusions of what secular humanism gives, and look at that, the outcome would be a logical.
My question is, what does logical impossibility mean?
I'm trying to answer. It means that it is something that if you look at the overall conclusions of something and look at it logically, the outcome is an impossibility. If you look at all the conclusions of secular humanism, what it tries to promote, the logical impossibility of locking people up and causing harm comes from looking at those the entirety of secular humanism. You keep coming up with questions of what if they locked people up?
Yeah, I
what
just
if
want,
they did
I just
that?
want to make sure we
it's
got
not
this
something
right.
that would happen in secular
Is
humanism.
Wolverine from the X-Men logically impossible?
Wolverine is from the X-Men, specifically the first.
No. The
iteration of
character, the Wolverine from the X-Men, the adamantium claws, the healing power system, is that logically impossible?
Using Copenhagen's interpretation of quantum mechanics, no.
No, it's not logically so. Wolverine is not logically impossible, right?
It could exist in a number of universes
Got
as far
it.
as we know.
But what is logically impossible is that a bunch of people can't get together and change what the meaning of harm is.
Well, again. But Andrew, you are missing the point of what collective experiences show us. We look at collective experiences throughout the world and we can see what harm is. You are just saying, well, what if they changed what harm is? But as humans, we know
Yeah,
what
Craig,
harm
what if they change what the meaning of harm is, Craig?
You got 3 words out there, Andrew.
Can you answer the damn question, Craig?
I'm trying to, Andrew, and if you let me, that would be wonderful.
Oh, well, you see, the thing is that without answering the question never gets answered,
I am
and so we're never going to actually answer the question because answering the question is an unanswered question.
Yep.
And what do they change the definition of harm, Craig?
Yeah, Andrew, I'm trying to let me answer the question. They won't change the definition of harm.
Oh, they won't?
No.
But Wolverine's logically possible.
So, secular humanism looks at what happens as experiences, and throughout humanity, we can know that locking people up and doing harm is a bad thing because it makes bad things happen. It makes people unhappy. It causes harm. It makes society a worse place.
What about when it doesn't cause harm, like when we lock criminals up?
So, the idea of locking criminals up, at least in the decent countries,
does it reduce harm, Craig?
Yes. When you
wait. So you just saying
locking people up, Andrew.
Locking people up is going to reduce harm. Well,
Andrew,
not
am I allowed
really,
to talk?
right, Craig?
Am I allowed to talk?
Well, Craig, you've
Andrew,
been doing
am I allowed
nothing
to
but
talk?
talking.
Andrew, am I allowed to talk?
Yes, Craig, you're allowed
Andrew,
to
am I allowed
talk.
to talk?
Yes, Craig.
Right, Andrew.
But how long are you going to talk?
Andrew, am I allowed to talk?
For how long at once, though?
Okay, so you are being a flat earther here.
You're being an ethical flat earther.
What you're doing is you're not allowing the other person to talk and just laughing.
That's because you want to answer any questions.
I'm trying to answer the question, but every
Craig,
time I do...
that's not answers filibuster.
No, you don't understand it as answers, Andrew, maybe because you're not a very intelligent person, but I'm not sure...
One day, Craig, I'll get to your level.
Oh.
Okay, so you're probably noticing some flaws in Craig's logic here, as was the entire room during the debate. And one of the major flaws is surrounding the idea that secular humanists are all about human thriving and a collective experience. Well, I mean, kind of begs the question, who gets to decide what the collective experience is? Well, they'll say the collective does. And who is the collective? Well, it's the secular humanists, clearly. But if it is just about the collective experience, then what happens if Andrew's hypothetical collective came true and people rose up and they said, hey, listen, guys, this birth rate problem is an existential crisis. And actually, you know what? We need these breeding camps. And there's enough of us to say that we see this as such a big problem that, it's worth cracking a few eggs to make an omelet. It's worth having the breeding camps now so that eventually our human civilization can thrive. Then what? What's their actual case against that? If the collective rises up and they decide that this is what they want to do. Because from the Christian ethics point of view, as Andrew pointed out, they actually can say that that is objectively wrong in all cases. Furthermore, he talks about harm and how this is how the moral framework of the Secular Humanist Manifesto is derived. The number one goal is to reduce harm. And then the question obviously becomes, how do you quantify what harm is as a secular humanist? What are the metrics? Would the declining population and the catastrophic disasters that are likely to come out of that be enough harm to have a little bit of pain now so that we can have all the flourishing in the future? So not great for Craig here, because let's just remember, guys, it was his claim that the secular humanists cannot arrive at these outcomes. He said it was logically impossible. And this idea is really about to come crashing down for him because it truly is a very, very flimsy house of cards. And I mean, yeah, Wolverine is possible though.
So would you like me to answer any of your questions, or are you going to let me get
actually
3
like
words
the
in?
answers. And here's the thing. I'll make a deal with you. If you treat this in good faith and you actually answer my questions, I'll actually answer yours. But don't filibuster.
I'm trying to.
Hang on. Don't filibuster and don't lie. Simple. Is it not the case that people change what the definition of harm is all the time? And by necessity, they have to do that, Greg, right? You have to change what the definition of harm is. So when you say, Andrew, it's logically impossible that people would change the definition of harm so that you could lock women up to do X, Y, Z to them, that's not actually logically impossible, is it?
Under the tenets of secular humanism, yes, it is.
Then show me where.
Secular humanism is about not doing harm and making
show me
things
where.
unhappy.
Show me where
Again,
in the humanist document it conflicts with this, since it says we can change our definition of what harm is anytime we want.
But the definition of harm is what it is. We know what harm is.
No, we don't know what harm is.
Yes, we do. Our collective experiences show us harm. If we make people unhappy, if we make people hurt, we make them die, we make them injured, that is harm. And as society, we can get together and say, well, we don't want those bad things to happen.
Okay, then Craig, I just have a simple question for you. When it comes to child transition surgery, right, we have a split on whether or not that's harmful. Who should I side with? Who should I side with?
The position of that is something that I wouldn't want to get into because... am I allowed to get my thoughts out?
What about harm?
Yeah.
My harm!
I didn't say I wasn't going to. I would say it's something I wouldn't want to. But again, I'm not allowed to get my words out here. Right. So as a collective society, we would get together and see what happens. And that is going through changes at the moment. Personally, I don't agree with that, right? And the current position within secular humanists seems to be that allowing children to transition is something that causes harm. All right? That is the position that I personally hold when I look at the evidence and what other secular humanists are saying, is that allowing children to transition causes harm because children are not at a place where they are able to make that decision. Their brain is not fully developed, and especially people with, if we look at neurodivergence, neurodivergence actually have a much higher percentage of wanting to transition and things like that, and that could be an effect of them being neurodivergent. So we have to look at individual cases, but personally, children in transition, because they are not ready to make that decision, their brains aren't fully developed until they're like the age of 25. So letting children do that before they have the ability to is in itself causing harm.
So then what's going on here is, just so you understand, I just demonstrated something very important to you. You said we know what harm is.
Yes.
Our collective experience demonstrates what harm is. Then I ask you a simple question. There's two different collections of people right now. One who believes that this is very harmful, and one, like you, who believes it's not very harmful.
And which one of those is secular humanists?
Which one of those? Well, humanists themselves disagree. Well, Matt Dillahunty, who's a humanist, for instance, is right as we speak probably sucking lady balls, right? Like that's actually true. So
Matt
hang on, stop.
Matt Dillahunty isn't here, though.
Stop, bro. It's my turn,
yeah.
bro. My turn. Calm down.
Calm down,
bro. Calm down. They themselves disagree on even what a man is. They disagree on the prescriptions for children.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. And they disagree about all of these things within the very same framework you're talking about. The thing is like, that's fine. You can grant that humanists can disagree. As the peanut gallery was telling you, you can make the same criticism about the Bible. Theologically, people disagree all the time. Totally fair argument. What's not a fair argument is for you to say that it's logically impossible for us to redetermine what harm is under humanism. Of course we can redetermine what harm is under humanism. Why couldn't we? Why?
Because their collective experiences as humanity show us what harm is. And if we look at what has happened in the past with humanity, and we try to change it to go back to when it was harmed, that would go against what secular humanism is. But to be clear, all secular, you are just lumping all kind of LGBTQ stuff as secular humanists. That's not just secular humanists that hold those positions. So you can be someone that is LGBTQ and not be a secular humanist. So let's not mix those two up.
Not making it about LGBTQ. I'm demonstrating that within this worldview, there's disagreement within it.
So Craig made a devastating mistake there when it comes to the logical impossibility of harmful secular humanist prescriptions. And this is what happens when you want to talk. You're going to slip up if you're not very precise with what you're saying. And one of the reasons why this was such a big mistake is because when he says this, logically impossible, he's alluding to there being some sort of an objective moral standard. And we all know that in the modern secular world, there are many issues that are extremely divisive, even amongst the secularists and the secular humanists. You've got child transitions, as Andrew said, and a few others would be men and women's sport, whether it's ethical to kill animals for consumption or even for hunting, because it makes some people happy to do that. And one could argue that animal suffering doesn't matter if it makes humans feel happy under their worldview. We could also look at issues like human nature and free will, geopolitics, international relations, etc. There is certainly no definitive position amongst the secular humanists about these divisive issues. No way. Anyways, the next bit is just another crushing defeat for Craig.
I said
Low
a lower
population.
birth. I said a slightly lower birth rate is not a bad thing. A slightly lower birth rate still increases
The
population.
birth rate is going to go down if more men are dead, right, Craig?
Yeah, because war's
Okay,
bad.
great. So since we've established that, if I say I think that actually these wars cause less harm to society because, well, it got the population down, and that actually is good for us long term. I have now made an argument for how I've reduced harm. Craig, if you disagree with that harm principle, right? We both disagree
That's
with
not
it.
what I
Would
said,
you chill
though.
out for a second? If we both disagree with that harm principle, right?
I said two
Our
words.
collective experiences can come to wildly different conclusions. If that's the case, I need you to have something I can default to look at, which would descriptively tell me why it is my harm principle or what I consider harm to be is wrong.
Right.
I have this thing called the Bible and church authority. You have a Humanist Manifesto to answer those kinds of questions. Where in the Humanist Manifesto can I find out that if I want to, I don't know, lock all the women up and breed them, that's actually morally wrong?
Okay.
Craig, where?
So, you are misunderstanding what the manifesto is for. The manifesto is a guideline. And then based on that guideline, people will get together and make decisions. Nobody is going to make a single decision that everybody then follows, like in your screwed up version of the world, where you can refer to a magic sky daddy as the absolute normative authority. It's ridiculous.
Instead of our Earth Daddy?
Right,
Instead of your Earth Daddy?
You notice how I let you talk.
Oh, I can't believe God did that.
You,
I
no-
can't
you
believe
notice how I
did
let
that.
you talk,
It's the
Andrew.
same- it's
You
the
notice
same
how I let
thing.
you talk.
Go ahead,
Right.
bro. Go ahead.
So once again, we don't need a normative authority. We don't need a one set of particular rules. What we need is a framework that we can get together and discuss to assess what is going to happen. We don't need a one particular person or one person's interpretation or one divine commandment to follow. We
Don't need a normative authority?
No, we don't. Why would we?
Well, I don't understand. When you have a collective of people who decide based on your manifesto and they're interpreting it to give you prescriptions, what do you call that?
Not a normative authority because
What is it?
It's not.
What is it?
It is a framework that you would get together and discuss.
No, not the framework. I'm not saying that the framework is your normative authority. Like you said, that's a framework.
Yeah,
All
and
the
that's what
people,
gives us the
all
guidelines
the
for the
people who
framework.
get together to decide the prescriptions based on the framework would be referred to as a
The people-
normative.
No, that normative authority is a single thing, right? Not a collection of people.
Do you
getting
know what a
together and making
normative
decisions.
authority even is, Craig?
Give me your definition of it. Then.
No, Craig, I'm not going to give you your definition for normative authority. What is it?
It's a single prescription for something coming from a particular set of rules.
Look it up real quick, Craig.
Oh, tell me if
I'm
I'm
going
wrong.
to stop. I'll stop.
Right, tell me if I'm wrong.
Pull up normative authority.
Right, tell me if I'm wrong.
So normative, philosophically, right? It's like an ought claim, right? What we ought to do.
Yeah.
If you have a normative authority, what is that doing? It's an authority expressing what you should be doing. So in the church, right, we would be referring to our ecclesiastical authority as our normative authority, meaning here's our framework, here's our church framework. This is our normative authority telling us what we ought to do. Same thing with the Bible, a normative authority telling us what we ought to do. If you have a bunch of people who get together and they make prescriptions based off of this manifesto that you're supposed to follow, those would be called what?
Okay, right.
What would they be called, Craig?
I can see I'm wrong.
What would
Okay,
got
right.
it.
Okay.
So hang on.
Right,
And by the way,
just
that's the first time ever. Congratulations, Craig.
I want to be clear.
Congratulations, Craig.
Right?
So, as devastating as that was, I do have to give Craig some props there for admitting that he was wrong, because that's what should happen in that situation. And if he doesn't admit he's wrong there, then he's just going to have to go into some very bad faith sort of rhetorical techniques, and it would completely derail the whole debate. But to the point, and just listen closely to this, guys, especially the Christians out there. What he's saying is that the secular humanists have their manifesto, they have their doctrine, their document. And then whenever there is an issue, whenever there is a divisive issue, what's going to happen is that all of the fathers, all of the secular humanists are going to get together and they're going to have a council and they're going to resolve these issues and they're going to come up with some prescriptions, thus obviously making them the normative authority. Now, I'm going to save you guys from more sarcasm here and just cut to the chase. Isn't that exactly what the church did throughout its history? Didn't the church fathers all meet up and have various different councils? One of the only differences is that they actually have the authority of the Bible and of God, which is an objective standard to appeal to. And of course, they created the best civilizations to ever exist. But I mean, all that to say that the secular humanists, and you see this in the atheist movement as well, they basically try and appropriate not only the ideas that came from Christianity and all of the amazing amounts of human flourishing that came with it, but they will also even appropriate the structure of the ecumenical councils, which is just so ironic because their own paradigm copies and is structured exactly like those religions that they hate so much, albeit theirs is built around this nonsensical harm principle and human thriving. And so of all the moments throughout this debate, you guys thought you'd seen the worst of it. Well, I tell you what, it's about to get a lot worse somehow. Get ready for some cringe.
Yeah, but I'm not a secularist. This isn't about secularism. This is about secular humanism. So
No, it's actually...
the Russians
okay.
were never secular humanists.
Okay,
right?
Fine, Craig. Let's back up. Let's just say for a second that they weren't, that Russians were not secular humanists. Then where are the effects of secular humanism? Where can we find them?
Again, well, the countries that are the happiest in the world
Are not secular humanists, Craig. Can't bring those up.
They are secular.
They're not
humanists.
secular humanists, Craig.
The
Which
majority
ones?
of the majority of the people there in those countries are secular humanists.
Show me one.
Show you one.
Show me one country where the majority of people are secular humanists. One.
Most in the Netherlands.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
Show me. Demonstrate it.
This has got Google, right?
Yeah, Google it.
Oh.
Google if most of the Netherlands are secular humanists. Go ahead.
All right. What? You want to do it yourself?
You can't do it? You want me to pull it up for you?
I didn't want to get that off of here.
This is a 2-minute warning that we have the Q&A coming shortly. And folks, while you're waiting, we'll have everyone line up to my left. So right here in this aisle is where everybody will line up for their questions. And that, like I said, will be in about 2 minutes. We'll start that Q&A. If you're watching at home, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We have many more debates coming up today, live here at Modern Day Debate.
Okay, so in 2021, a whopping 58% of Dutch people said that they were secular humanists and didn't belong to any religious ideological group. Well, secular humanism is still a thing. It's likely that many non-religious majority don't specifically label themselves that way. But of people aged 15 and over, in 2021, 58% of Dutch people identified as secular humanists.
Show me.
You can find the citation on... Yeah, I'm bringing it up. Sorry, one sec.
If you'd like to start lining up now for the Q&A, you're welcome to.
Well, it's from Wikipedia.
Because I got 9.4%, Craig. I'm just letting you know.
9.4% was about 5 years, 2015.
Uh-huh.
So in 2003, it was 9.4%. So back in 2003, 9.4% of the folks in the Netherlands identified with secular humanism. Fast forward to 2021, and 58% of Dutch people aged 15 and over said they identified as secular humanism and didn't belong to any religious ideological group.
Pull it over here so I can look at it. I can just find it.
I just wanted to summarize it.
Well,
I just want to point out that that doesn't actually say that. I don't know what he's talking about.
I'm trying to get the actual things.
That does not say that, Craig. You just made it up, Craig. You made it up, Craig.
I didn't. I read it off of a site.
You read it off of. I made it the fuck up site.
I read it off here.
Go ahead. Let me see it.
No, I got it to summarize. So.
Oh, you got it to summarize. You're not. Oh, is that? Oh.
Let me get that back up. Sorry, give me one second.
Okay. I'll give you a second.
That got the information from that site.
Yeah, information from I made it up.
Right.
Our questions
I will get
are
you the
as
statistics,
short and pithy
right,
as
specifically
possible.
because
Okay.
I did have it in my notes, but I can't find the site that I got it from. Right, but that's where my notes are from.
We're
right.
going to go.
So source, I made it up.
No.
We're going to
Let me
go-
be clear, Andrew. I am saying to you right now that I will get you my source because the notes are actually on my computer at home, which I couldn't bring with me to America. Right, and I didn't.
Then what did you just read?
My summary, but the summary didn't have the link to the site that I got it from.
Oh, okay.
Going to go
Right?
and-
So I'm saying to you right now that I will get you those details to show that I'm not making it up. I will personally give those to you. right, when I get home and find the link
Okay.
on my computer at home.
Okay, great.
Now,
Great,
okay?
Craig. Yeah.
So just to be clear,
We're
By the
good
way,
to
it's
go.
9%. 9%.
Just
9% in
Anyway.
2015. 9%
going to
in
go.
2015.
Waiting for your counter, Craig.
Yeah.
We have to go
Again,
into Q&A.
9% in 2015. In 2021, it was
We're
58%.
moving into the Q&A.
So a comprehensive dunk there for Craig. His first W of the evening, pulling out a massive citation from the one and only ImadeItUp.com. Yeah, not looking good. And I looked it up myself, guys, and it was in fact 9% of people from a study done in 2003. And it said that 9% of people expressed an affinity with secular humanism. So the language there is pretty vague. And also, Holland, a society that has some pretty drastic social problems. Anyways, now for the best moment of the entire debate and probably the entire event, when a based lord comes and steals the show.
Yes, hello, Craig.
How you doing?
Good, thank you. Before you said that it's impossible for secular humanists it's logically impossible for them to change their prescriptions. With this,
No.
You said that it's logically possible for them to change their prescriptions.
No.
Logically impossible.
What I said was it would be logical and possible to come to the conclusion that that would be okay, not that we couldn't change the definition.
But I came to the conclusion it was okay.
Yeah,
so clearly
but
it's
so
not
if you-
logically
Humanist.
impossible.
But if you're saying that it's logically impossible, you're implying that both logic and morality are objective. So how do you ground that objectivity in both logic and morality? And then also, you have to ground it outside of human perception, not just my preferences. Because if you say it just comes down to your preferences, then what's wrong with Andrew's preferences?
Again, it's not preferences, it's experiences as humans. What, as a collective group of humans, we would experience and perceive as a bad thing to happen to us. And we would base it on that rather than anything specific. We would say, okay, so humans as a whole, we experience this as bad. We get hurt, that's bad. We feel unhappy, that's bad. We get depressed, that's bad. And then we would use that as our basis.
So it's not objective.
No, it doesn't have to be.
So great question there by that handsome based lord. Absolutely destroyed. And with that, guys, that's it from me today. Hope you did enjoy this. If you guys would like to watch our travel vlog on DebateCon, I think you'll enjoy that. It's right here. If you'd like to watch another video, right here, whatever's being recommended for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. Until next time, I'm Jake. This is RattlesnakeTV, keeping you armed and dangerous.